This is not a comprehensive lesson, okay, on classroom management. I know that word in that word in parentheses on your schedule is usually what brings everybody to this class is discipline. How do you discipline kids? And that's usually I'll give you the magic sauce here, brother. That's right, yeah. Brother Pelletier said, don't smack the kids. It goes without saying, don't slap the kids. And he said, unless they're mine, then they're the example. That's the truth. But you will not receive every nut, bolt, and tool in this one 35-minute lesson, all right? But I hope to give you some practical tips and an overview of how to properly manage a classroom. So the very first thing that I would say for classroom management is self-management. You know, Abraham Lincoln said this, give me 6 hours to chop a tree, and I will spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. You know, so the more we are prepared for the job at hand, the easier the job is going to be for us, the more effective we're going to be. And so we need to resist the temptation that Sunday school is on Sundays. My wife has a saying that Sunday school does not just happen on Sundays. Sunday school happens every day in the week. We need to develop a piece of Sunday school every day. It's part of our every day. You know, I'll see a billboard and it'll inspire me on something. I'll come across a situation or an object lesson or something. Anyway, so if we could develop a habit to just be Sunday school minded, you know, children's ministry minded every single day, then things that happen at home with our own kids become fodder, you know, become fuel for the fire. You know, things that we just encounter on an everyday basis becomes inspiration, you know. So let's be mindful of our class, our children's ministry, what we're teaching, praying, fasting, connecting with our kids. If the only time that we think about our kids is Sunday morning when they're walking through the door, we're not going to be effective in ministering to them. We should be praying for them by name. You know, I encourage our teachers. As a matter of fact, I ask for an attendance list of every single one of our kids so that I could pray over them by name, call them out by name. I may not even know every single kid because I'm the pastor of the church. And so I'm not back in Sunday school, but I still care. I still care for every single one of those children. I want them to be feeling the presence of God. And so we should be praying for them, connecting with them throughout the week, communicating with your team. That's another big part of this is classroom management, is team communication. Matter of fact, that's going to be one of the number one issues or conflicts within children's ministry is dealing with teams. So when we talk about classroom management, we're talking about self-management, we're talking about team management, we're talking about resource management, all different kinds of angles. That's not just related to discipline for problem children, quote unquote, but there's a lot of things that we can do leading up to that discipline part that can make that job a lot easier. So we need to control what we can control. What's one of the things that we can control? Ourself, right? Our attitude. We got to own our attitude. We got to own it. You know, sometimes my kids, I got a 7-year-old, 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and one on the way in June. And then we've got 2 young people that we've put into our home, 15 and 17 years old. They've been with us for a couple months now. And sometimes if my attitude is off, my kids will tell me, "Hey, Daddy," you know, my wife will tell me, and she'll tell me, you know, and I got to own my attitude. You know, sometimes there's external things. It's totally not related to Sunday school. But if we don't own our attitude when we're walking into our classroom or with our team, sometimes that can bleed over. So we need to learn how to manage ourselves, manage our attitudes. And if we can't manage ourselves, how can we expect a classroom full of children who definitely aren't developmentally capable of managing themselves to manage these? Or to be managed. That's the whole purpose of this class. You know, how do I discipline my kids? Well, why are you asking that question? Because they can't discipline themselves. They need to be managed. And so if we can't manage ourselves, how can we expect to manage a room of 30 feral badgers, And so we must be committed to the process. There is no magic trick. Sorry, brother. What was your name? Brother Mark. All right. And sister Jennifer from Houston, Texas. Oh, okay. Well, outside of Houston. Praise God. Yeah. There's no magic trick to make your children behave. So we've got to be committed to the process and sharpen ourselves. Remember, I'm going to spend 4 hours sharpening the axe. I got 6 hours to cut down a tree. So I want to prepare myself before approaching Sunday morning. And so one of that parts of classroom management, self-management, would be being intentional with our teams. Team maintenance is a big deal. Who here is a lone teacher? You teach a class by yourself. God bless you, sister. What age group do you teach? 6 to 10 by yourself. Wow, where are you from? Missouri. Okay. God bless you. What was your name? Sister Harley. Let's give it up for Sister Harley. Man, that's commitment right there. Praise God. We'll be praying for you. I'm going to add you to my list. Hallelujah. But but the prayer is that we have teams. We have at least 2 people in a classroom for accountability purposes and to help bear the load. It's a lot to stand up there and try to teach and keep their attention for an hour or however long you've got them in your classroom by yourself. And so I'll be praying for you, sister, that you get a team. But team maintenance is a big deal. Just because you have the people on the docket to help, sometimes we could get in each other's way with attitudes and we're miscommunicating things, and we have certain expectations of them to carry something out, and then they drop the ball, and now all of a sudden it throws us off, and it could just be a big problem. So all the parts need to work properly for the vehicle to run effectively. It can't just look good. It's got to be functional, and we are the vehicle, the church, the vessel of the gospel to these children. So we've got to work together. We got to make sure we got that blinker fluid filled up, and got to be working right. And so I have this, what I like to call the ABCs of team maintenance, just something to help Monica kind of help us out with making sure that we're maintaining our teams right in our children's church classroom. So we see the smallest team in the room, a team of 1. I mean, man, superhero over here. How many people do you guys have in your classroom? Like 15 people in your Sunday school class when you're teaching a kids' church or whatever. 5 people. Okay. Is that pretty accurate across the board for you guys too? There's more kids. Okay. 17 members. All right. How many people's helping y'all out in Sunday school in class? 3 to 4. Okay. Brother Brazil, what do you guys have running helping children's church? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, we'd like to think that with only 2 people on a team covering a class, that they'd have things together. They're working together and they're being cooperative, communicative, not waiting until Sunday morning. But sometimes when you have a smaller team, the temptation to wait until Sunday morning is even higher when you have a bigger team, because you just kind of get comfortable with each other, and it's easy to get into ruts. And so it's one of the things that I like to say is acknowledge you're working with human beings who are different from you. All right. So that's half the battle, is just giving each other some grace and understanding that my strengths may be their weaknesses and their weaknesses may be my strengths, and work to complement one another. We're a team. All right. Appreciate your differences and use them for the benefit of the children's ministry. For the Booker said, it's all about the kids. It's not about my way or the highway, who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong, but how can us working together benefit the children? Another A is accept you may not get it your way every time. That's a big deal of team maintenance, right? Sometimes I may contribute a thought or an opinion or an idea. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be used. I'm gonna speak it, but it's not about me. It's about what's going to be most effective, what everybody can get on board and get excited about. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad idea that you had. It just might mean that there may be a better way. It doesn't mean that it was bad. Maybe it's just not now, or maybe not for that lesson. Another A is always be committed to unity. Be the big one. Take the high road. Be willing to take a step back and prefer your brother or your sister for the sake of the team. The B's of the ABCs of team maintenance is be involved. Don't be the guy that's in a team project, quote unquote team project, and two people's carrying it, and you're like, yeah, you guys got this. You guys carry it. No, be involved. Be encouraging. Eeyores are hard to have on teams. People who always is pessimistic, always negative, always discouraging the others about what they did, nitpicking at different things, little things. Be encouraging. Be dependable. That's a big deal with team maintenance. You don't want conflict. Be dependable. Be faithful. Show up. Be on time. Do what you need to do. Be prepared. And then also be collaborative. And so be open to other people's ideas. Be open to other people's input. Delegate. One thing that I'm learning as a pastor is that just because you delegate doesn't mean you abdicate. So sometimes you have to be checking in. If you're a lead teacher, don't just tell them what to do and then hope they do it come Sunday. Check in with them. Be collaborative. Ask them if they need any assistance, and ask them, tell them that you can be a sounding board for their ideas, and encourage that conversation. Number C's of team maintenance is communicate vision. So one of the things I encourage our Sunday school teachers to do together, sometimes when we think about vision, we think of our pastor just being the one casting the vision all the time. But did you know you could have a vision for your Sunday school class? You can have a vision for your children's church. You can have a vision for your bus route. And so share each other's vision. You may not be the lead teacher even, but you have a passion, you have a burden, you have a zeal. Get a vision for the ministry, get a vision of where you want to go, and communicate to the rest of that team. Guess what it's going to do? It's going to catch on. It's going to inspire folks. You got something to share. So communicate your vision. Communicate expectations. Man, unmet expectations are guaranteed when they're uncommunicated expectations. You will never get what you don't ask for. So we got to communicate our expectations. Learn to talk to people. It's so much easier to just wish they'd do it and then complain over lunch with your spouse. All right, let's learn to talk to people. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's awkward, but let's communicate expectations. Let's communicate challenges. The thing is this is the one that everybody likes to focus on when we talk about communication. We like to talk about what's going wrong and how it's so hard and all the things that we're up against. Let's be okay with communicating challenges, but while we're communicating challenges, let's communicate solutions. Let's communicate our victories as well. Let's testify to one another about the good things that are happening in our Sunday school class, about that little boy that hasn't really responded, but that this Sunday he had a tear trickle down his cheek, and he may not have came to the front, but you went to him, put an arm around him, coached him through, and he prayed his very first prayer today. Like, communicate those things, because guess what? You might have saw that, but your other team member might not have even saw that, and here they are dealing with the weight of the challenges they're facing, and there was a victory that happened. They just didn't see it. And so communicate. All right, moving on. Let's get in the groove and stay groovy. Yeah. So getting in a groove, this is the way my mind works. All right, getting in the groove means that you are running center with a channel within a channel with two boundaries. All right, that's a groove. There's two boundaries that create a channel, and you're running alongside that. All right, that's a groove. In Sunday school, if you are going to stay groovy, get it? Those boundaries are the routines that you make for yourself throughout the week in preparation, and the routines you set for yourself on Sunday morning. Routines keep us groovy. When we're not in routine, we're not in the groove. We get disorganized. It's chaos. We procrastinate because we're not setting into a routine. And so, who wants to have groovy Sunday school? You want to have groovy Sunday school? Come on, man. You're in Southern California now. All right. If you want to have groovy Sunday school, you got to get in the groove. All right. And the groove means that there's boundaries. What are the boundaries that we are setting up for ourselves? Those are our routines. So I think that we, in self-management, team management, Sunday school, classroom management, we should have routines every single week. I have a conversation with the people in my classroom every Tuesday night. We meet and we talk about what we're doing or whatever. Just have it set. This is when we talk about this Sunday. This is when I'm going to have the deadline. If I'm doing the object lesson, I'm going to have a deadline for myself to have the materials that I need for that object lesson by Wednesday night. That's just my routine because I don't want to be making a trip to Five Below on Saturday night. Okay, so we're going to hold ourselves to those routines, and that'll help us not be so distracted or so chaotic come Sunday. All right. Also, our Sunday morning routine. Let's have a routine for ourselves on Sunday morning and commit to it. We must be honest with ourselves in identifying bad habits in our weekly routines and our Sunday morning procedures. If something's not working, let's not treat it like a golden calf. Okay, let's throw it out. Let's look at it. Brother Ken Badwin, I just learned this from Brother Pelletier. Sunday school is just a program. I've always said this about curriculum. Curriculum is not the infallible word of God. Edit it, change it, misuse it. I don't care what the authors meant. Find what works. That's all we care about is what works. And so this may be the way it's been done for 20 years, but is it being effective? Okay, if it's not being effective, we're not in a groove, we're in a rut. All right. I want to be groovy. We're going somewhere. All right. Here's the thing about routines and holding ourselves accountable to those routines is procrastination is very real. Now, all my fellow procrastinators, raise your hands. All right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Brother Julian was late to the game. That's right. Procrastination is real. I am the world's biggest procrastinator. You might say that about yourself. Don't let that be your excuse to not try. That was the excuse long before it's even time to start getting ready to go, right? And so if you agree to a routine procedure within your team, I think you should talk about this with your team. This is part of team management. If you have a team that you're working with, talk about those routines you could set up for your team on a weekly basis, on a Sunday morning basis to help you stay groovy, okay? If you agree to that procedure and stick to it for a month, you will see positive results, develop habits that will come as naturally as your procrastination did. You are a procrastinator until you're not one anymore. You do things until you don't do them. That kind of makes sense, right? Or you don't do things until you start doing them. It's just up to us. We have to make the decision to commit. And so when we aren't in the groove or we're not in routines throughout the week, we will not be groovy come Sunday morning. And that's where the problem of discipline comes in. Everybody came to the class so they could learn how to discipline their kids, not to learn about how they could make routines throughout their week so they could be groovy on Sunday morning. The truth of the matter is, come Sunday morning, if we're not prepared, if we're not in the right headspace, if we're not on the same page with our team, then our kids are going to need more discipline because all of that affects the classroom, okay? Another thing is facility organization. Oh my goodness, this one's real, y'all. It's real, okay? Because I'm preaching to the choir and I'm preaching to myself sometimes when it comes to our own Sunday school. It's something that we're always having to address is don't be a slob. What is a slob? A slob is a person who is lazy and has low standards of cleanliness. Remember, this isn't your house. This is God's house. This is the bus God has entrusted us to transport the gospel to these kids. Our classroom space obviously ought to be well kept. But if we are unorganized with our supplies and resources, that translates to inefficiency in our ministry. How many times have we had to buy a new staple gun because our drawers and cabinets are stuffed full and we can't find it? We're wasting precious time going to Lowe's when we know we have it somewhere. We just can't find it. And so this takes a long time to turn a ship. All right, Counterculture is difficult. And so if the culture is just stuff it somewhere, I've learned something about cabinets and counter spaces. If there's a place to put something, somebody's going to put something there, right? And so it's easy for things to become catch-alls. But when we're talking about Sunday school, we have limited resources as it is. Let's be organized. And that way we can be more efficient come Sunday morning. We're not scrambling trying to find stuff, right? Sister Haley, Harley, so close. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. Who's them? Upstairs in children's and other classrooms? Okay. Are they preparing things for you guys, or are you telling them to get something specifically? For Sunday school or for other stuff? Okay. This sounds so familiar, doesn't it? You know what's funny? I don't care how big your church is, how little your church is. If you don't have a closet, you have a triangle room. You know, like, yeah, there you go. It's either a triangle under the stairs or it's a triangle in a weird spot in the church where the walls are kind of like shaped like a triangle and everything, you know, and that's just the room, the abyss. That's the wardrobe into Narnia, right? So, I mean, it's true. You throw something in there, you're not going to find it. All right. So I totally understand. Have you guys talked? Haven't had a meeting? Yeah. One of the things that we've tried to do is just tell, hey, look, everything ought to have a home, right? So to save the team's sanity and time, you know, just put things back where you found it, you know. And I know that sounds so basic, but one of the things that we can do is, have you guys labeled buckets and stuff? So we don't know if that's worked yet. Yeah, I would say, you know, that would be the next step, you know, because making sure you have tubs with labels, you know, sometimes that helps. Also, one of the things that my wife taught me when we were first married was, let's institute a one-touch rule. Okay, when I came home from church, I would take off my jacket, drape it over the couch. Take off my tie, drape it over the recliner. Take off my shoes, leave them in the kitchen, right? And so and now I have to go back and pick those things up and take them to my room. And guess what I do? I'd pick them up and take them to my room and lay them on the bed to hang up later. Lay them in front of the closet instead of opening the closet, put them in the shoe organizer thing. And it's taken 3 touches before it actually goes where it's supposed to go. Just let's institute a one-touch rule. When you're done with something, you pick it up. Let's put it where it goes, and then we're done with it. You don't have to touch it again. It's out of sight, out of mind. And that organization cabinet with the labels and stuff, it really can help sometimes. Brother. There you go. Yeah. Get some skin in the game. Yep. They'll appreciate the organization more when they're responsible to clean up the mess. Yeah. That's awesome. Let them do it for a month and just say, hey, look, you're going to be responsible to make sure everything stays in its home. You know, we don't want any of our resources to be homeless. All right. We have a homeless ministry, but our church stuff is not homeless. Okay. All right. So, also, when we're dealing with stuff like this, be considerate of your brothers and sisters. You know, sometimes we shoot now and ask questions later when we're dealing with our team members and things like organization and whatnot. Hebrews 10:24 says, be considerate for preventive to provoke unto love and to good works. And so when we are being organized, we're provoking people into good works. We're showing that we care about our facilities and about our soul, brothers and sisters. Colossians 3:23, and it says, whatsoever you do, do it heartily as unto the Lord and not unto Amen. All right. So the power of presentation. We're talking about classroom management. We're talking about discipline. When are we going to get there, Brother Hodge? I'm telling you, we're already there. All right. All of these things will lead up to making your Sunday morning way more effective, way more seamless in your operation. So the power of presentation. Your preparedness is 80% of your classroom management. And I got that statistic from my opinion. They say 98% of all statistics are made up. So I don't know if that's true or not. I just made that up. But I believe that's true. You know, classroom management isn't always about strategy in the there and now. A lot of times it's just a matter of preparedness. We should have everything lined up. We should have everything ready to go before our kids come into the classroom. If we're running to the closet, if we're running to the store, if we're sending people out to go get things, I understand last minute inspiration. I am known for that. I was doing a junior camp one time and it hit me. I was like, I need a door. And so we were up in the mountains and I had to borrow somebody's truck to drive to Lowe's like an hour before church started to buy a door, a pre-hung door to come to get back to camp. You remember that? You remember that? Did you go through the door? That's so cool, man. You got those memories. That's amazing. So, but it was last minute inspiration. I understand things like that happen, okay? But if we're doing that perpetually, then that's one less person that's focused on the kids when the kids are in the room that could be helping manage what's going on. And not only that, but when we're not prepared, it's going to cause us to be really scattered and frantic. We're going to be more focused on our props or more focused on our lesson or more focused on the thing than the kids. I love what, I don't remember who told me that. It's okay, brother, I'll bill you later. I don't remember who said this, but we don't teach lessons, we teach kids. So when we focus on the lessons and on the stuff and on the thing, we're forgetting the main thing. And it's all about the kids. It's all about the kids. All right. So your props should be staged or presented nicely. I love it when my wife comes with me places because she has it all lined up. She's never up in the front hardly, but she's got everything lined up for me. Any persona that you take on with a skit ought to have been well thought out and prepared. If you got costumes that you're going to be doing, don't just think, oh, I know I got that in the costume closet, and wait until you're 5 minutes to be up on the stage before you go run and find your costume. Have it all ready to go. And also the power of presentation, the actual performance of your skits, object lesson stories, it does matter. It really does. Don't wing it. Practice with your team. You're going to do a skit. You're really good with improv. That's great, but I'll just tell you from experience, most churches think that they're good at improv. You know? And when they get up there, it might be funny, but then the core meaning of what's actually trying to be taught is lost. And it's because they're not prepared. They're not on the same page. They don't know what they're doing. And so it's really important to be prepared. That's going to help you tremendously with your classroom management. And this kind of goes, that's really about presentation. This is more about the planning, looking ahead with lesson planning. Whether you're using a curriculum or not, whether you're in kids' church or in a classroom, I encourage people always plan ahead, and I'm not just talking about next Sunday. I think that, well, first of all, who here uses a curriculum? Anybody use a curriculum? Go ahead and raise your hand if you use it. You guys use PPH stuff? Just whatever you can find. I understand. I've done that, and we've had to edit. So having themes are going to help you develop your own curriculum, right? Yeah. And so, but what you're doing is you don't create a theme and say, okay, our theme is, a power plant or, mad scientist, and say the first lesson we're going to teach is crazy faith, and then we'll just figure it out as we go along from there. No, you should have a set time frame for that theme, whether it's a month or 2 months or 3 months or however long you want to go. Sometimes we drug it out a little bit due to variables, but we have a timeline that we're going to try to fit things within that thing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come up with the topics for every single Sunday, the main lessons we're going to teach for every single Sunday or within that theme. There's some churches that got me way beat on this planning ahead thing. They planned out the whole year before it's even started. Bruh. Good on them. but that's like I can hardly think about tomorrow. And so, but the whole idea is plan ahead. And if you're using curriculum, read the curriculum the moment it comes in. Don't wait till the first Sunday to open the book, right? Be reading it, preparing, learn how to use the curriculum. And what I recommend people doing is bunch up your lessons. If you don't use quarters, bunch up your lessons monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, however you do it. Just have a plan that you're going to take this theme for this long, and these are the topics or the lessons that we're going to teach every single Sunday, or each Sunday you go. You're not flying by the seat of your pants, all right? When you plan ahead, you actually give yourself more time to think outside the box, because you actually have time to prepare for the execution. How many times were you inspired because there was a lesson coming up, and and you thought of an object lesson like 3 weeks too late, and you had to buy things on Amazon, or you had to order things special order, or you had to build something, and you thought to yourself that Friday night, oh, if I could just have done this, it would have been so perfect, it would have fit so good right here, and we can't do it because we weren't looking ahead. And so do yourself a favor, inspired lessons and stuff, write it down, look ahead, plan ahead for it. Just because you think of something doesn't mean that you have to do it this Sunday. Maybe it's better to be fit down the road later when you have more time to actually prepare and get it together. All right, classroom discipline, discipleship. And this is really the whole reason why we come to this class. Let's just be honest. Show me how to discipline them. What's the legal loophole for me to whack them? No. What we need to do is we need to identify and clarify what is the desired behavior of our students. Sometimes we can just see a kid and we're like, man, that kid's wild. Well, how do you expect them to act up? How do you expect them to behave? I'll tell you one thing that I think, and this goes in big church and in Sunday school. I don't think that a well-behaved kid is a child who sits on a chair with their hands folded and is perfectly quiet and still. That's not a well-behaved kid in church. That's not how we behave in church. Right? We want them standing on their feet. We want them jumping up and down. We want them clapping their hands. We want them shouting and singing and laughing even. We want them to feel that liberty and freedom in church. And in Sunday school, we want them to be doing it in decency and in order. We want them to be doing it within the parameters of effective ministry of the church. We want the Holy Ghost to be able to minister to them. And we've been given to them to make sure that they're being discipled on how to have church or how to engage the presence of God. So I think we should have clear-cut rules and expectations. And I don't think it should be a list of 50 commandments. Moses, first thing he got 10 commandments. He got the whole Mosaic law and the Levitical order and all this stuff later. But at first it was just 10 commandments, right? And so if we're going to have rules in our Sunday school with our kids, let's make them simple and clear. So for us, number one, pick up your finger, point it to heaven, bring it to your mouth, say shh. No talking when the person up front is talking, right? That way, whenever a kid is doing just that simple motion, just lets them know. Remember the rule, right? We do rule number 2. I'm watching you, right? If somebody does this, that means that you need to stay in your seat and get your hand off your neighbor, right? All right? Yeah. Stop messing with your neighbor and sit still, right? Rule number 3 would be my favorite rule of all time. Just have fun. That's a rule in kids' church. It's a rule in Sunday school. And I tell our kids, you can't have fun unless you're engaged. You can't have fun unless you're participating. I make them scream, participate, right? And so you encourage them to be involved, right? You're not just telling them to sit there and listen. That's not a well-behaved child, all right? That's not fun. That's not how church is supposed to be. And so whatever we do, we should have clear, simple expectations for our kids. Now we need to understand that not every situation is black and white. Not every kid is the same. We might have to approach certain situations with some tact, but we should have some a progression. We should determine a progression of discipline before the rule is broken. So if a kid is acting up, I'm not like, to the front row with you in a dunce cap. Don't forget the dunce cap on the way out, right? We're not going to the extreme and expelling kids from the bus because of whatever, all right? When we identify our rules, if no cursing, guess what? Some of these kids, they don't even know what cursing is. They don't even know what is a cuss word because it's so common to them. And so are we going to give them grace and disciple them and teach them when they do use the D word and they cuss out a peer or whatever, and we tell them, hey, look, that's a curse word and we don't use that language here. Why don't you use this word instead? Give them alternative. You're teaching them instead of just dropping the hammer. You're telling them what's acceptable. You're communicating those expectations, and now they know. And so next time they use it, you have a progression of discipline, right? So the first time you taught them. The second time there's going to be a consequence. Maybe they're removed from an activity and they're sat by a helper, right? Or you have an outside talk with them. You take them outside and you have a conversation with them. Or if you have a Sunday school superintendent, I know my mother-in-law was a Sunday school superintendent for two decades, and her job was to do superintendent stuff in her office during Sunday school and to be the principal. So when kids were acting up and it was progressing to that point, they were removed from the classroom. They had to go sit with the principal, and at that point you might want to have a conversation with their parents, right? If we don't tolerate hitting in our Sunday school. We don't tolerate it at all. I don't care if you're a bus kid or a church kid. We don't tolerate it. We don't care if you're family. We don't tolerate it. Immediately, if you hit somebody, we're having a conversation with your parents. Like we're going to let your parents know that you're doing that, and that might seem extreme, but that's his cousin. Well, what we allow with family members, other kids are going to take example from that, and before you know it, you have bus kids poking each other's eyeballs out. And so whatever you do, whatever you come up with as far as that progression of discipline, be consistent. And yet at times, depending on the situation, you can be graceful in certain things, but just don't let kids walk over you. Kids are, they're gambling addicts. They are. They'll treat you like a slot machine. And if they think they can win, sometimes they'll just keep pulling that lever. And they'll lose most of the time, but sometimes they're going to hit the jackpot and get away with it. And so they'll test you. They'll try you. So we have to really walk that tightrope of not letting kids walk on us, but at the same time not being so hardcore that we don't use opportunities to teach them and actual disciple them. That's what discipline comes from. It comes from a word talking about discipleship, to disciple someone, to teach them something. And so there's a difference between punishment and discipline, right? Punishment is just, that's the hammer dropping. That's the negative consequence of a bad behavior. Discipline is us as the adult, as the church, taking the opportunity to teach the kids what's expected, how to operate within the church. When we are disciplining kids, never be demeaning to a child and always consider their heart, okay? We should be able to correct them without embarrassing or hurting them to the point where they don't want to come back. Okay, I like to I call it a correction sandwich. All right? You approach them with something positive, you slide the criticism or the correction in there, and then you end with something positive, right? And so that way they know you still love them. They know that they're wanted. They know that, it's not the end and you're not labeling them. You're not a bad kid, but this is what we expect. This is what we need to do. And so after it's all said and done, the kids that we discipline or correct should still want to be there next time. All right. So if we have to suspend a kid. We've had times where we've had to suspend a kid because they kept using bad language, or they hit, or they were not listening to a teacher. We had one kid that literally got up in the middle of Sunday school and walked out, and the teacher ran after him, and it was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, I don't want to be here. And he just walked off. And we're like, what do we do with that? Because we can't legally, in the state of California, we cannot legally lay a hand on a kid and keep him there. In Texas, you probably could lasso him up and throw him in the barn, right? I don't know. But I don't know. But in California, you touch a kid to restrain them from doing something they don't want to do, and you are looking at some major litigation for your church. And so it got to the point, I wasn't even there. I was preaching somewhere else. And our Sunday school teacher didn't know what to do. This kid just walked off. He's like 9. And so this person called the parents. The parents didn't answer. And so he called the cops. He called the sheriff's department and let them know that, look, we had a kid come to our church on the bus, and he decided that he didn't want to stay because he wasn't listening to the teachers, and he walked off. And we can't get hold of the parents. We need to let somebody know. It's like, man, that was scary. That was terrifying. And so we had somebody following him, making sure that he was safe. And finally, the sheriffs were able to contact the parents. And it was just this big ordeal. And guess what? He was suspended. Because he's got to know that he can't just come to church and decide to just walk off like that. That's not safe. But what did we do? Did we say, you can't come back next Sunday, and then just hope that he comes back the following Sunday? Or are we going over there and having a conversation with him and his parents, talking to him? Or are we going even the week that he didn't come to church because he wasn't able to come because he had to learn a lesson? Were we going over there and making contact with him, showing him love, showing him that we still cared, showing him that we still wanted him there? I'll be honest with you guys. There's been some kids that's come to Sunday school where they've been continual issues, and then they don't show up to Sunday school, and there's a little bit of a, let's be honest, right? And that's just the reality. But these kids need God, and they're not going to find them anywhere else. Their parents aren't teaching them. Their schools aren't teaching them. And so what lengths are we willing to go to for a child? And if they have to learn because we're discipling them, we're showing them some consequences and some tough love, and they get suspended, that may be something that you have to cross. Talk about it with your Sunday school leadership, your pastor. Try to develop a game plan of how you're going to approach certain situations. But at the end of the day, even if a kid's suspended from coming to Sunday school because of certain behaviors, still be following up, making contact, showing them love, showing them that you want them there, showing the family that, look, this isn't personal. We're just trying to teach them what is acceptable in our Sunday school and what we expect in our church. We want them. Amen. Okay, there's 2 ways that I would identify discipline in a classroom. I would say there's preventive care and there's critical care, right? I'm thankful for the emergency room, but if I can prevent certain things by just going to my general practitioner, then I'd rather just see a doctor instead of having to go to the ER, right? And so this is, when we think about discipline, we think about reactionary discipline. But there's some things that we could do preventively to keep it from escalating or getting to that place where we have to drop the hammer, right? So the most common reason kids act out is that they are bored. Sorry, not sorry. It's true. And that's a hard reality to face, especially as a teacher, because you're like, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that a kid's bored. I'll help you with something. If you're not excited about your lesson going into it, the kids are going to be bored. If your pastor comes up to you after church on Sunday morning and says, hey, how was Sunday school today? And even if you were frazzled because the kids might have been like a little crazy, or there was that one child that might have been acting out, if you can't be excited about what you did in Sunday school, telling it to the pastor, and maybe you could be vulnerable and share some of your challenges to him too, that's all fine. But if we can't be excited before and after we do it, then there was something that went wrong in our presentation. It was more. And if kids are bored, they're just going to act out. As a matter of fact, I found this, there was a poll that was done among public school primary teachers. I'm going to say it in the main auditorium probably, in the Don't Be Boring session. But 70%, 2 out of 3 primary school teachers, elementary age teachers, said that post-COVID, behavior in the classroom has dramatically declined. Kids are more likely to get out of their seats and wander the classroom. They're more likely to provoke and annoy their peers, and they're complaining about being bored. 70% of public school elementary teachers are saying that this is a problem. Okay. That's a real statistic. Yeah, that's a real statistic. Yeah, I know. Don't go to my taboo session. I've got so many statistics in that one. Yeah, no, that's a real statistic. And so public schools are dealing with this. This isn't just Sunday school. This is a problem that society is facing. Kids' attention spans are diminishing rapidly. And guess what? It's not just the kids' attention span. My poor grandma, dude, when she got invited to Facebook, when she learned about Facebook, she was gone. Granny done left the chat. All right. She was gone, man. We'd be over her house where we used to play I Spy and Dominoes. She's just scrolling through her phone. I was like, man, this is terrible, right? And so it's true, though, right? And so sometimes we complain about the kids' attention span, and really, like, we're no better sometimes. Right? And so we've got to realize that these are very real realities that we're facing that we need to be preventive concerning. If we know that kids tend to be more bored in general, then we need to take extra steps to make sure our class is exciting. If you're not getting excited about it, if you're not thinking that it's dynamic, then your kids definitely ain't. All right? And sometimes we just miss the mark because we're irrelevant. All right. I've learned to tease myself about my irrelevancy. I've accepted my irrelevance. All right. Facts. No printer. No cap. See, it's cringy because I'm irrelevant. I'm not supposed to use that language, right? I had a young person say cap was so last year, Pastor. They're changing so fast, man. Like, can't even keep up, man. It's like cringe, for real, for real. So, anyway. So dynamic and engaging content will attract the energy and creativity of a child. Children are looking for something to take out their energy. Children are looking for things that are creative and will catch their attention. All right? So if we provide that to them, then chances are they're not going to act out because they're engaged. Don't be upset with a child acting like a child if they don't do anything with their energy or creativity. They're kids. What do we expect, right? Sometimes, being a father of young children all at once, sometimes you feel like pulling your hair out. My wife's like, they're just little kids. I'm like, I know, but it's driving me nuts because I'm 32. I'm like, I know I'm a kid at heart, but like there's some things it's like I would like some peace and quiet, and they're not doing anything bad, Sister Lad. They're just being kids. Exactly. Yeah, my wife, it really is the epitome of grace and patience. Sometimes I have to go outside and play because I'm just like, So anyway, oh man, I've got to hurry, don't I? What time do I have? Until 4 or until 3:50? Boo. Oh, you're dismissed. No, I'm just kidding. Let's get through this real quick. Everyone else was late. I started late. So, preventive care. Try smiling. Try smiling every now and then. Even when you're guiding a child to correct behavior, you don't automatically have to go stone cold or Mach 10,000 or super sprinkle them, right? When you're correcting a child, you don't have to do it. Be like, hey, stand up. Yeah. No, you're almost talking to a puppy, okay? So try smiling, encouraging them. If there are helpers in the class, if you have helpers in your class, if you have other teammates, this is a personal pet peeve of mine. When helpers or volunteers are standing in the back of the classroom, that's my personal pet peeve, okay? I hit a sore spot. That's my personal pet peeve. If you're a helper, you're not going to help anybody if there's kids in the front row that needs addressing, and you're in the back of the room, and you have to walk past all these kids, walk to the front of them, and go, hey, it's time to... Or if we're trying to correct it from the other side of the room, we're like, hey! Guess what? They weren't even a problem to most of the classroom, but they were a problem to you, and you became the problem for the rest of the classroom because you weren't with the kids. And so what I tell our teachers to do, if you're in a children's church setting, you have multiple helpers, find the middle seat. This is kind of hard if you're a big adult. human being, right? Like me, I'm 6'1", and so if I'm sitting with the kids, there's some kids that are like, oh, yeah, see, you make a better door than a window, right? And so, but find the middle seat on the second row, and then just skip every other row, put a person. Because then you're arm's length from any situation that might come up in those two rows. Done. Right? But if you're in the back of the room or on the side, you can't help anything, right? So that's a preventive measure. And also your presence is automatically just going to make them more cautious about acting up. Okay. Another preventive thing is reward good behavior. Small incentive prizes, nonverbal and verbal praise. Here's one thing I would say about that. Never take away rewards as punishment. They got that for good behavior. So you want to reinforce what they were doing right, not by taking away what they did right because they did something wrong. All right, you want them to remember they know how to behave, and if they do well, Cain, you will be accepted. All right. So be a student of your students. What are they dealing with at home? Have you shown your support to them personally? Do they have a mental or learning disability, or are they on medication? Get to know your kids on a personal level can help you plan ahead of time how you're going to help them successfully be discipled in your class. All right, so these are all preventive measures that you could take. I've got to hurry. Who's ever heard of call and response? 1, 2, 3. All right, there we go. Yeah, so I brought an avocado to church, kids' church with me, and we were teaching on holiness and how God wants us to be holy as He is holy. And every time I felt like the kids were swaying from anything, I would just hold up I told them, keep an eye on this avocado. Every time I pick up this avocado, I want you to say, holy moly, guacamole. Right? And it kept their attention because they were just waiting for that avocado to go up so they could scream, holy moly, guacamole. Right? So you can get creative with the call and response, all right? But the idea is to practice it with the kids several times before it's actually needed. Could you imagine if I just picked up an avocado? Ah, stop! Right? And so they'll be watching and waiting for you to do something with that call and response so they could scream something. They'll always, they like screaming stuff. So just give them a reason to scream something and they'll do it. Give them a nonverbal warning. Like, what were you thinking? Like, look half confused and then shake your head like, come on, bro, what are you doing? And sometimes that'll embarrass them enough to just stop. They're not going, you're just like, bro, just look at them, make eye contact. Whoever is not in the front teaching at that time should attempt to maintain control with the one teaching. All right, try avoiding hushing or snapping. I need to, you know what, do I need to read that? You guys can read, can't you? Let's see. No. Oh, yeah, I name drop all the time. But not like, hey, stop that, Tommy. What I usually do is, like, if I'm teaching, I'd engage them. Like, Tommy, could you imagine what it must have been like? And then all of a sudden they're like, what? Right? Just say their name and engage with them, and then you'll get their attention. They'll be distracted from their distraction. Okay. Don't be afraid to move a disrupting child. Don't let them take over the class. Have a game plan for if it's absolutely necessary to remove a child from class. Remember, there's a progression. You don't have to go from nothing to Mach 10. All right. Have a plan. And don't wait to talk to a parent or a guardian if some serious disciplinary action has to be taken. Talk to them like after Sunday school. Even if they're kids that came on the bus, talk to them that day. Don't wait till Saturday to go tell them that you had a problem. They can't come on the bus that next day. Talk with them ASAP. And then lastly, love that child unconditionally. Reach out to them. Show them care, concern beyond punishment for behavior. Let your focus be discipleship toward proper behavior that brings glory to God. And don't let your focus be on the bad behavior that the child is exhibiting. You don't know what that kid's going through at home. And so let's give them grace. Let's learn them. Let's teach them. Let's draw lines and hold that standard when we have to, but always love them. Never stop loving them. Never stop caring. Never stop praying. Never stop reaching.